संस्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। So in the last class, we were studying the various types of yajna as has been enunciated in the 4th chapter of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita. So as a quick recapitulation, that the concept of yajna, how does it evolve in Bhagavad Gita, that we were describing in the last class, that in Vedanta, the idea is the ultimate reality, the Brahma, finds expression as Shakti, and that Shakti again finds expression as certain laws. It is not chaotic. Om, Rim, Ritam. Om represents the ultimate reality. Rim represents the Shakti aspect. The entire creation is nothing but energy. That Shakti aspect, which we find expression in the phenomenal universe, represents that Rim, and that Rim finds expression as rhythm, the rhythm, the laws behind the universe. So even in our human existence, when the existence comes to the beings, so the moral law we will find which is working behind the working of the universe is yajna. Thus we find that the concept of yajna has been much more widened in Bhagavad Gita. It doesn't represent only the fire sacrifice. Wherever we find there is a idea of give and take, it is all yajna. Just in the fire sacrifice, we offer the oblations to the fire with the expectation that the devas will be propitiated by the offerings of the oblations, and in return they will give us blessings in various forms. That concept is now elaborated. Here we find in Bhagavad Gita, it has been mentioned in the 3rd chapter, that Saha Yajna Praja Srishtva. When the Lord created this universe, He created along with yajna. So it doesn't mean only the fire sacrifice. That entire universe we will find is governed by the principle of interbeing, give and take. Nothing can be secluded from the entire universe. A constant flow is going on, constant give and take is going on. Be aware of that fact and take part in that yajna with full awareness. That, as in the last class also we were indicating, with the evolution of the modern science, the idea was that knowledge is power. The famous statement of Francis Bacon, that knowledge is power. But we take it in a very positive way. But when Francis Bacon termed this quotation, that knowledge is power, his intention was something very negative. That the nature by itself is not going to offer you anything by itself. You have to force it out. And what's that force? The so-called knowledge, all our technological knowledge, with which we are forcing out of nature all its resources. So there was no sense of cooperation with the nature. We were exploiting the nature, and we find that we are in the verge of extinction. If we continue this way, we are bound to become an extinct race. So why? Because we never realize the law behind the entire universe. It's the idea of cooperation, to be aware of this interbeing and to take part in it. As we find in our scriptures, it was mentioned the idea of Pancha Yajna, the Bhuta Yajna, the Nri Yajna, the Rishi Yajna, the Pashu Yajna. So all these yajnas were there. That in our day-to-day life, being aware of the fact that as we take from the nature, we have to again in return give back to the nature. If we have to live a life in harmony and synthesis. Otherwise, we will be the cause of disintegration. And that's the basic idea with which we find that when I am relating to the universe, in Sanskrit there are two words, parak and pratyak. When through your senses you move out, that is parak. When you close your senses and try to dive within, that is pratyak. So parak, when you are interrelating with the universe, then also that yajna has to go on. How? We will find that in the 3rd chapter it was mentioned that from karma, from action evolves yajna. From yajna comes parjanya, means rain. From rain comes anna, means food. And from the food we sustain ourselves. So if we take yajna in the limited sense, the fire sacrifice, it means nothing. We will be resorting to some practices when there is drought. We will be doing some fire sacrifice with the idea rain will come. We forget we have totally devastated nature. We were not doing the yajna. And now that this misconception has led to all these natural calamities. And just by doing fire sacrifice, we think that we are going to bring back the harmony of nature. It's not going to be. The real meaning of yajna is what? It is going on always. Look at the tree. Yajna is going on. That rain falls. It is absorbed in the soil. And that again, that same water is being, is absorbed by the roots of the plant. It is nourishing the plant. And not only that, from the leaves, the transpiration is happening. So just see, give and take. It's a cycle. The same water now in the form of transpiration, this is the yajna which is going on. Then you can relate these words, that from karma comes yajna. What? Karma means that Shakti aspect, the ring aspect, that the Lord has found expression as Shakti. That karma is now finding expression as yajna. That Shakti is again not chaotic. It finds expression as law. What's the law? The law of give and take. That yajna, that how that yajna is happening, the same rain which is absorbed by the soil is again, that same water is absorbed by the plant, and again it is through transpiration. It is forming the cloud, so that again the rain is coming. This cycle, this yajna chakra is going on. Knowing that, participate in it. The real yajna is not doing the fire sacrifice. Go and afforest the universe which we have already exploited, believing in the idea that we have to exploit nature to sustain ourselves, to consume more and more, to satisfy our greed, we have to exploit. We forgot that unless we are maintaining that balance, planting trees, the yajna is going on there. Then you can understand that how from karma comes yajna, from yajna comes rain. Not by just doing a fire sacrifice. Forest let that land which was green, we again be green. Let us cooperate with nature, coexist with nature, not we live at the cost of nature. And then this yajna is going on, you take part in it. So that was in the 3rd chapter, where when we are moving out, parak, through our senses, relating to the world, relate by doing that type of yajna. It is only one specific example which the Gita has given in the 3rd chapter, but it actually means in each and every phase of life. That when you're in your work field, when there's all these multinationals with all this huge money, you will find that the world's wealth is with only the 1%. 99% of the wealth is with the 1% of the population. So what has happened? There also yajna is not happening. That all the industries are after all meant for what? To create jobs, and after creating jobs to really think of the welfare of all the beings. that I still remember that when our Aditya Birla, in his autobiography, has mentioned that his father, G.D. Birla, who contributed a lot during the freedom movement of India, he was funding the freedom movement. He had a lot of contribution, but he was after all a businessman. So when he was instructing his children that when they grow up, they have to continue with the business, he used to say that your personal life should be very austere. Your food habits, your day-to-day entertainment, everything should be disciplined. Don't waste your money, squander your money. So do the business properly, save money. And with the money you save, what will you do? Do another business. So you will find it is just the language of the businessman. No, the next sentence is very important. Why do another business? You will create job for another 10 people, 20 people. You will help them to sustain. So you find the idea of yajna again, that you do get the wealth from the society and again you give back by helping them to stand on their own feet. I go for my job. It is not for the mercenary purpose just to earn money. Each and every work, after all, has that factor where I'm contributing to the society. Whatever we may be doing, in some way or other, we are contributing to the society. So give that factor more importance, that I do need money to sustain myself. That wonderful example of Goodwin that we gave in some previous occasions, where we find this concept of yajna very nicely elaborated. That Goodwin, he was a stenographer. When Swami Vivekananda was delivering his lectures in the West, it was all extempore. He was a realized soul. He never had some prepared lecture. From inspiration, whatever is to come from his mouth, he is to speak. And now all the gatherings, the devotees, the disciples, they started feeling that all will be lost because there is no manuscript, there is no transcription of what he is speaking. There is no reference to it. He is just speaking from his inspiration. So they appointed a stenographer. His name was Goodwin. He came as a stenographer, and while taking the notes of Swami Vivekananda in shorthand, he himself got inspired. He got so inspired that he became the disciple of Swami Vivekananda, and he followed Swamiji. When Swamiji came back from the West to India, he came along with him to India. And he used to do when Swami Vivekananda was sick, Goodwin was serving him personally, preparing his food, just keeping this dress, everything clean, ironed. So all the personal works he used to do. Seeing that, all were impressed that how devoted he is. And then after some time they found that he do get some remuneration from Swami Vivekananda. Monthly he is getting some remuneration. So now it became a gossip. All started gossiping. After all, he is not a devotee. He is after all paid for what he is doing. And these words at last reached Goodwin. Goodwin heard of what the gossip is going on. And his remark was wonderful. He told, yes, I do take some remuneration from Swamiji. Monthly remuneration I do take. Why I take? Because when I came along with Swamiji, my old mother, I have left her back in UK. She is still there. She is old. No one is there to take care of her. To send some money to her, I do take some money from Swamiji. And Swamiji gladly gives me that. Willingly gives me that. But for my mother, I do take some money from Swamiji, but let no one think that it is for that money I serve Swamiji. I love him. I respect him. I revere him. I consider him as my guru. And from the bottom of my heart, it is the core of my heart, whatever I do for him, it's not for that money. I do take that money because I have to sustain. I have to take care of my mother. So I do take money, but all the service which I give is just the outpour of my heart. It is not because of that money. So this is the wonderful attitude which we all can have in our work field. That I have got that opportunity, the privilege to to what you said is take care of certain responsibilities with which after all I'm serving. No work is after all meant only for my own sustenance. It is meant in some way or other to serve the society. So I am serving the society, but for my sustenance, for my family's sustenance, I do take some money as a salary or any whatever it may be. But my service is just from that love, from that empathy for the entire humanity. So if we can have that attitude, that work becomes worship. So that becomes yajna, and that's the idea of yajna in the 3rd chapter we saw. And in the 4th chapter, again this concept of yajna comes. Before he's going to the description of the various forms of yajna, first he says that if I can do the same yajna with the idea that after all everything is Brahman, it is that Om, that absolute reality which finds expression as Shakti, which again in turn finds expression as the law of interdependence. So after all, everywhere it is the Brahman and Brahman alone who is manifested through all the work which is going on and all the laws and principles of interbeing which is finding manifestation through all those work. It is the Brahman and Brahman alone. So if in all my activities I can see that it is the entire universe with all its action is permeated by the divine and divine alone, then I am always aware of the divine. Then nothing remains secular. Everything becomes spiritual. Even my day-to-day life, everything, whatever I am doing, in everything, I find it is the act of offering by the divine to the divine. And even the act itself is divine. And that was indicated in the 24th sloka of the 4th chapter. That's the famous sloka which we study, Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavi, Brahmagnau, Brahmanahutam, Brahmaiva tena gantavyam, Brahma karma samadhina. So everything is Brahman. Brahmarpanam, the offering itself is Brahman. Brahmahavi, the act of Brahmarpana, the act of offering is Brahman. Arpana is Brahman. Brahmahavi, the thing which I am offering as oblation. Havi is the ghee. That is Brahman. Brahmagnau, the fire is Brahman. Brahmana ahutam, the entire, the one who is offering, he is also Brahman. Brahmaiva tena gantavyam brahma karma samadhina. He attains Brahman, who with this awareness can do all his actions. Within all his actions, he is always aware of the fact it is the divine which is manifesting itself as the universe, and it is the divine who is finding expression in all the actions which is going on in the universe. And that's the thing which we try to remember always before taking food. It's not just the food. It's the idea that we may miss out our meditation. We may miss out our spiritual practices. But I cannot miss out my meals. I have to take my food. I may say I have no time for my meditation. But I cannot say I do not have time for my food. You have to take your food to sustain yourself. And that's why this is the practice which we have, that at least that this is a thing which is a must. I have to take my food. Why not before food you tag that prayer to indicate specifically the food I am taking is Brahman. It is offered the fire of digestion. That is the Jataragni, the fire in your belly, which is as if digesting your food. That is Brahman. That you are Brahman, the food is offered to the Brahman, everything is Brahman. So this idea of interbeing finds expression in the process of taking food, in the assimilation, and in the process of nurturing ourselves, and in the process of this interbeing. Through all this idea of the awareness of the interbeing through which the divine alone is finding expression is manifested. So why not before food repeat this mantra, repeat this sloka, which indicates not only the interbeing only when we are taking food, actually it indicates the idea of interbeing in whatever we are doing throughout our day, as long as we live, from our birth till our death, whatever we are doing. This idea of interbeing is there everywhere, and it is the divine alone who is finding expression through all the actions in this universe. To remind us of that fact, we always chant this sloka before taking the food. So that we were discussing in the last class, and then we entered into the various aspects of yoga, of yajna. That yajna is not only in our relation to the external world. Even when we go dive within, pratyak, when we are trying to evolve our own personality, transform our own personality by practicing certain disciplines, then also this yajna is going on. And those various ideas of yajna, which is going on within, not only with our interaction with the world, which is going on within, has been described from the 25th to the 33rd sloka of the 4th chapter. So what's the 25th? That also we studied in the last class. Daivam eva pare yagyam yogina paryupasate brahmagnava pare yagyam yagye naivopajuvati. Daivam eva apare yagyam yogina paryupasate. That it's a general practice that which most of us do. For most of us, we have devotion to God not because we want God. We want all the worldly goals of life to be fulfilled. And we think God is the means to achieve that end. I go and pray to God. So most of us, our yajna is how? That we offer something to the divine, expecting in return some worldly gains, wealth, job, good service, and all this name, fame, everything, good health, all these things for which we go and worship to the divine. That is also yajna. That also has been mentioned as yajna by Bhagavan. Though it is not the highest form of devotion, though it is not the highest form of yajna, but it is a yajna. Why? Because in this world nowadays even, you will find that most of us, when we want to achieve something, we hold on to some influential people of this world. I think, oh, he is a rich man, he is a very influential man. If I associate with him, he will give me some favors. The idea of divinity is not there. Our entire approach is worldly, that there is some existence behind this. I am not even aware of it. That portal of existence have not opened up for me. So the one who have started believing that God is, he is there to help me out in all the situations of life. At least that the divine portal has opened for him. Though he is asking for some worldly gains, but he has developed a belief in God. So that's why he is also considered as one who is aware of the yajna. So that's the first thing he's starting with. That the one who thinks God as the means, world as the end, and that way offer to the divine, expecting something in return. So that's also which categorizes most of us, has been first enunciated by Bhagavan as a yajna by saying Daivam eva apare yajnam yogina paryupasate. That sacrifices to gods alone, that most of the karma yogis resort to. And then brahmagnava pare yajnam yajna naivopajuvati. But the one who has developed the awareness of the divine, shall he stop from all actions? That most of us think that as long as I think the world alone is the be-all and the end-all of my existence, I move out to the world to get the maximum benefit out of it, to extract. And then when I develop the idea of the divine, that after all this world is temporary, the God is something which is eternal. So if I have to hold on to the divine, I have to leave the world. That's the basic idea. That I have to leave the world, renounce the world, and be always contemplating on the divine. So to nullify that type of idea, to just help us out from that type of false renunciation. What Bhagavan is saying, Brahmagnava pare yagyam yagya naivopa juvati. That that when you know that it is the divine and divine alone who is the be all and end all of existence, everything else, what I see as the world of name and form, is nothing but the divine. That doesn't mean I have to renounce the world and lead a pure contemplative life, not trying to in any way associate with the life. No. You can continue with all your actions, keeping that idea that it is the divine and divine alone which is finding expression through all the activities in the universe, in the form of interbeing. So with that you do the yajna, as we studied in the 24th. That's the idea which is being again spoken of in the second phase of the 25th sloka. That Brahmagna, that still others offer the sacrifice by way of sacrifice in the fire of Brahman alone. That is the Brahman and Brahman alone, which is finding expression as the universe. With that idea, he continues with his work. So it is just the change of paradigm, the change of attitude. Spirituality doesn't mean that to change the way of your action. That for us, spirituality means I leave everything and lead a life which speaks of pure spirituality. Just meditation, worship. No. Whatever I am doing, I can continue to do the same thing with a different awareness. That is with a shift of awareness. That it is the divine which is finding expression as the universe. It is the God and God alone. In the words of Ramakrishna Vivekananda, Shiva Jnane Jiva Sheva. It's when you are interacting with the world, you are not interacting with other beings. As Swamiji used to say very nicely, I worship that God whom the ignorant calls man. As I see you as a man, I see you as a woman because I am ignorant. I worship that God whom the ignorant calls man. That's actually, it is a God. It is a God in each and every being. It is the same divine which is finding expression as you and me. Seeing that divinity, whatever I do, then it no more remains just an ordinary work. It becomes worship. So there is no more any compartment, any watertight compartment between spirituality and secularism and secularity. There is nothing. There is no compartment between the spiritual and the secular. Everything becomes spiritual. Your life becomes 24/7 spirituality. Spirituality cannot be a part-time affair. So that in the morning for a few hours I just do my worship, I meditate, and rest of the day is my dealing with the world. That can never be the spirituality. The real spirituality is something which is 24/7. It has to permeate our entire existence. The once we change our attitude, everything becomes spiritual, nothing remains secular. And that's the idea which has been spoken of in that second phrase of the 25th sloka. That Brahmagnava pare yagyam yagya naivopa juvati. That some offer their sacrifices in the fire of Brahman. So that's the idea which has been spoken of in the second phrase of the 25th sloka. And then in the 26th sloka. So we are actually recapitulating. We studied in a more elaborate way in the last class. What's in the 26th sloka? These slokas are wonderful. It actually, you'll find that with spirituality we can encompass entirety of our life. That way Gita has been propounded. The 26th sloka, what it is saying? Srotradinindriyananye sangyamagnishu juvati. Srotradini indriya anye sangyam agnishu juvati. That some offer their ear, all the sense organs as sacrifice to the fire of self-control. What it is speaking of? See, when as a brahmachari, in our scriptures they have spoken of as the 4 stages of life. Brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa. And they have spoken of 4 the stages, these 4 ashramas, and 4, there is another 4 is the goal. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So these 4 Purusharthas and 4 Ashramas. In the first ashrama, the Brahmachari, what is his Purushartha? To practice Dharma. Dharma means what? Not the religion which we speak of. Dharma means Dharyate iti Dharma. That which helps us to integrate. That when I will be a householder, I will be pursuing for artha and kama, for wealth and for the sensate pleasures of life. As a householder, I will be pursuing. But that has to be done in a controlled way, in such a way that I don't resort to some way of life which is not sanctioned by the society. You will find all the crime happens why? That after all, the pursuit of artha and kama has dragged us to greed, and we forget about the injunctions which bind us as a society. We just exploit. In our pursuit for artha and kama, we start exploiting others. So for that, some integrity of the character is required. So as a brahmachari, when you are practicing dharma, it's not just gathering of information. You are integrating your personality so that when you grow up, you start leading the life of a householder. You will be pursuing wealth, you will be pursuing the sensate pleasures of life. But you will be doing it in such a way that you don't lose your integrity and you don't become the cause for the disintegration of the society. So this is very important. So as a brahmachari, what I have to do? To a certain extent, I have to practice delaying of gratification. It is not that I just renounce everything. I know that all the pleasures of life are waiting for me as a householder when in the future. I delay. I have to control myself now to a certain extent so that from this self-control, I gain something in future. That I renounce some short-term gain to get some long-term gain. That if I get distracted with all the sensate pleasures of life as a student, I won't be giving more, my focus on the studies will be wasted. I cannot focus. And that speaks what? I cannot integrate my life. I cannot really focus to reach the goals of my life. It will be dissipated. So here, when it is saying that srotradini indriyanyanye sanyamagni shujuvati, that as a brahmachari, what is your yajna? That control your senses, control your mind, not because that I have to control forever, for the time being. I am delaying my gratifications so that I can integrate my life. So as a brahmachari, when you are practicing samyama, this practicing self-discipline, then the fire of your yajna is the self-discipline in which you are as if offering your senses. So that speaks of the integrity, that as we find in our scriptures, it has been mentioned, Chhatranam Adhyayanam Tapa. To be focused in your studies is the tapa. What is tapa? So it's not easy. The thousands of things are there to distract me. But I have to use my willpower to keep myself focused in my desired goal. That's so that my energy is not dissipated in thousands of things. So that's the state of the brahmachari. For a brahmachari, the yajna is the sanyama, as if you are offering your senses in the fire of self-control. And the next, when you become a householder, the second line speaks of that. Then also yajna goes on. What's the yajna for the householder? Shabdadin vishayanyanya indriyagnishu juvati. Now the self-control was the fire. Now the indriyas itself become the fire in which you offer shabda, means all the sense objects. What it means? Yes, now as a householder, you do have that license to pursue for your kama and artha and kama. I have that right. I have the license for that. But I have to do it as a yajna. What's the yajna here? That is Atmavat Deva Sevanam. The do's. Now I am enjoying my life to a certain extent within all the restricted parameters of the scriptures and of the society. I am enjoying. I am earning my wealth. I am resorting to the sensate pleasures of life. It's all okay. But don't forget that after all, the entire universe is nothing but the divine. So do how you do it? With a sense of yajna. What's the yajna here? Just give an example. If I just like mango. And when the season of mango comes, in the market there's a lot of mango, I go and buy the mango and just come and have it to my own satisfaction. So that is just the satisfaction of the greed, nothing else. And now the scripture is saying you need not restrict yourself. You need not say, oh, I won't eat, though I like mango, I won't eat mango. You still can have it. But how to do it? Instead of just buying and just having it for yourself, buy the mango, come, offer it to the divine. After that you can have it. So you're still having it. But what has happened? In the meantime, through that offering, the idea has come that this is the sacred food. It is a prasadam. So now what happens? You will find still you are satisfying your greed. But in the process of satisfying your greed, that greed is being sublimated to devotion. You develop devotion. The same. It is not that you have renounced everything. But through the same act of your enjoying the sensate pleasures of life, you find that all the desires are being sublimated. A devotional factor is coming to your life. So now you will understand what they're saying, that when you are a householder, you do have the license for the license for artha and kama, to earn money, to enjoy the sensate pleasures of life, but do it as a sense of worship. As in the last class we were saying, you will find that in the Hindu marriage ceremony, what's the thing? The groom will be holding something sharp. Any part of India you go, something sharp. Either it is the sword. In the Rajasthan and all, they will have the sword. In West Bengal, it is just the jati, the nut cutter with which you cut the nut. They will be holding something sharp. What's the idea? It's actually idea of mutual respect. That we say that in the marriage ceremony, they say Pati is the Parameshwar. It's a wrong idea. Not only Pati is the Parameshwar. It's not that only the groom is to be treated by the bride as the Lord. It's not true. That's true. It's partial truth. The other truth is something very important. Even the groom has to think that my bride is the Shakti, is a divine Shakti, is the expression of the divine Shakti, with whose help I will cut through the bondage of Maya, of ignorance. So just to signify that idea, that with her help, I am going to cut through the bondage of Maya. He's holding or she's holding something sharp. He's holding something sharp. That's the idea. So we don't know, these rituals are done in a very meaningless way without knowing the significance behind it. Once you know the significance, you find the idea of yajna is hidden there. That you are resorting to some householder's way of life. You will be resorting to the sensate pleasures of life. But to do it again with the sense of worship. That it is the interaction with the divine. The other's happiness, the other's pleasure is of my prime importance in life, not my own. My own happiness should not be at the cost of the others. That's the question of mutual respect. When both have that my pleasure, my happiness is secondary, the others is primary, then it becomes yajna. There's no more question of self-gratification. It is there, but it is being sublimated through that yajna to a process where we all are practicing the effacing of the ego to a great extent. And that's the idea of the yajna as a householder, which has been spoken of in the second phrase. The Shabdadin Vishayanyanya Indriyagnishu Jivvati. And then in the 27th, So now when you go to the from the state of grihastha to the state of vanaprastha to the state of sannyasa, all the stages of life, now your yajna changes. Now you have gone through all the stages of this, the responsibilities as a householder, as a family man. Now the world doesn't want something from you in return. You are to a certain extent free. And now the other dimension of your life has opened up, the spiritual dimension, you know. After all, just the pursuit of sunset pleasures of life cannot give me that eternal happiness. There is something spiritual dimension in me. I have to be aware of that to really enjoy the eternity of my existence. After all, this life, the nature at certain point of time gives me everything in bounty. When you are a youth, when you have your qualifications, your degree, you get a good job, you find as if the entire nature is your slave. It is ready there to serve you by providing you all the amenities of life. And you think you are at the top of the world, you're the king. And as you start aging, the plan of the universe is such. Even if you don't want, you want to cling to whatever you get, you cannot. As you start aging, you will find your youth is going, all your capabilities, skills, they're all vanishing. Your mind is not that sharp. However you may try, you cannot compete with the young ones. It's all going. It's all going. You cannot hold on to that. It has to go. Because what's the plan of the nature. It gives you in bounty at certain point of time, and again it will take away everything from you at certain point of time. So that's why Swamiji is saying, as we have to give willingly. Let not others snatch it away from you. You have to give. So give it willingly. Let not allow the others to snatch it away from you. Before it snatches, you give it willingly. Enter to that stage of life where you become now aware of the spiritual dimension of existence. Not only this physical plane, which cannot satisfy you through eternity. And by becoming aware of that, now you resort to another type of renunciation, which is not similar to that of the brahmachari. The brahmachari's renunciation was different. He knew the pleasures of life are waiting for me. For the time being, I am renouncing. But when you go to the Brahmaprastha state, that renunciation is something different. That as my real nature is concerned, I am always fulfilled. I don't have to gain something to really attain fulfillment. I am always fulfilled. I just have to detach myself from this worldly existence and be aligned to my spiritual dimension of existence, where there is no want, where there is no desire, where there is no question of annihilation. I am eternal. I am always fulfilled. So for that, you have to practice sacrifice, where you are always aware of the spiritual dimension of your existence. And that from that entails renunciation, where there is no question of delaying the gratification, but there is a question of annihilating the gratification totally. I just not delaying, I am annihilating. Because this worldly plane of existence, after all, can never give me that fulfillment. It has to fall off. I have to be established in my spiritual dimension. So it is no more question of delay. It is a question of total annihilation. And that's been spoken of in the 26th, 7th sloka. That Sarvan Indriya Karmani Prana Karmani Chapare Atma Samyama Yogagno Juhati Jnana Deepite. So others offer the functions of all the organs and the pranas, prana and sarva indriyani, in the fire of yoga of self-control, lightened by knowledge. That jnana, that I am the self. In this knowledge becomes the fire of a sacrifice. In that, now he is offering all the sensate pleasures, the prana, everything of his life, he is offering that. That's the thing which we studied. So when you go to the state of vanaprastha, sannyasa, even some may need not go through the stage of grihastha. If there are a few fortunate ones who have developed that idea, for whom the spiritual dimension of his existence has opened up as a child, when he was a brahmachari, he can skip that state of, this grihastha, can skip the state of vanaprastha, can go directly to the sannyasa. As in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is mentioned, that yat ahareva virajit, tat ahareva pravrajit, grihatva vanatva. The moment that renunciation, the real renunciation dawns in, don't waste time. Don't give a second thought. Prabrajet, move out. Grihatva, either from house, vanatva, or from the state of vanaprastha. You can go directly to the state of sannyasa. Because an opportunity knocks only once. So there's a joke that someone heard the knock in the door. There was two knocks, knock, knock, and he asked, who is it? The voice came, opportunity. So he told it cannot be, because it knocks only once. So it knocked twice. So it cannot be. So what's the idea? So most of us, we will find that we do develop a sense of renunciation after entering the house of the grihastha, the householder's life. We feel, why all this waste? But now you're already though inwardly you're having a sense of renunciation, but external circumstances won't allow you. So as a brahmachari, if that came, don't wait. Go out. Because if you delay and somehow get trapped, there is no chance. Though inwardly you have that will, but external circumstances won't allow you. So these two factors has to come together. It's not only your internal will. The external circumstances also has to be favored. So when it comes in life in the proper moment, don't give a second thought. Simply move out. That's a bold statement in the Brihadaranyaka they are saying. So those who were fortunate enough to come out from that state, well and good. Otherwise, those who are in the state of vanaprastha and the sannyasa, they can start thinking of this, that Atma Sanyama, that I am the Atman. Keeping this awareness always alight, that is the flame of your fire. Offer all your sunset pleasures so that you can be aligned to your spiritual diamond of existence by detaching yourself from this so-called, all the senses, all the vital energies, and be always established in the self. That is the path of the yoga, which has been spoken of, which is applicable for the vanaprasthis and the yogis. Just see how Bhagavan is transforming the entire life into a yajna, a spiritual pursuit, that nothing remains secular. Everything becomes spiritual if you do it with that sense of yajna. And then in the 28th sloka, these various yajnas which you are doing, how we can do? We can do it as an offering of some material things, or it can be the knowledge, it can be the deliverance of the knowledge. If someone is hungry, I can give food. But a better way of sacrifice, that if someone is hungry, immediately I give him food. But in the process, when I'm giving him food, I teach him how to cultivate the land. So then what happens? If you give food to someone, you can appease his hunger just for a day. But if you teach him agriculture, you appease his hunger forever, isn't it? So jnana yajna, this any yajna which speaks of this idea of give and take through knowledge, that is always better than just simply giving some material thing. So that's the idea which will be spoken of in the 28th, that how this various type of yajnas have gradations. What's the idea? Dravya yajnas, tapo yajna, yoga yajnas tatha pare, swadhyaya jnana yajnascha yataya sankshitabhrata. So all these yajnas which has been spoken of, it can be the idea of give and take through dravya, through some just things in the form of charity, or it can be tapo yajna in the form of penances. It can be yoga yajna by controlling the mind stuff, or swadhyaya by comprehending the meaning of the Vedas or any sublime ideas through constant this contemplation. Or that's the various types of yajnas which we can resort to. Dravya yajna, this charity, tapo yajna. This charity can be a yajna. How? Whenever you are giving something, you will find, it's a very interesting thing. Any gift, when you give something, a joy emanates. It's a wonderful thing. That's why we say that as a small child, that suppose as the father or the mother, you have the will to give something to someone. You can simply give it. But instead of giving yourself, if you have a child, you ask him, ask the child to give it. Just simply that it's not a very big deal. That instead of handing over something to some other person, you ask the child to give to that person. And you are actually educating the child in a wonderful way. Because something we never realize, that in giving something, you experience a joy. Most of us think that just to grab things, to have things, to acquire things gives us joy. We never realize in giving something there is a great joy, because that speaks of the dissolution of our ego. Sri Ramakrishna used to say our ego is like a barrier. So in this ocean is like the ocean of existence, and in that ocean you immerse one pot, and some ocean water enters into that pot. Now you say this is pot water and this is ocean water. There is a barrier. If there's a waves in the ocean, it no way disturbs the water in the pot. Sri Ramakrishna says this pot is like the ego. There's only one existence. And where our ego creates that barrier, now I get separated from the entire existence. Others' pain doesn't make me suffer. Out of sense of responsibility, I may help others, but it doesn't really make me suffer. But it is only because of the barrier of the ego. As we say, you will find with the small children, when they are all playing together, if one falls and gets hurt and starts crying, all starts crying. Because their ego barrier is very, very thin. They are yet to develop that ego. They easily relate to others' emotions, very easily. If one child cries, the other starts crying. So as we grow, as our ego barrier becomes strong, we start getting totally separated, isolated from the entire existence. So the more this ego barrier is thin, the more we relate to others. And in the act of giving, our ego barrier starts falling off. And immediately, the moment the ego barrier falls off, the moment you relate with the non-local consciousness, not just the localized consciousness within you, the more you feel joy. Most of us are not aware of it. I still remember in our schools, whenever there is this, the celebrations, we have to distribute prasadam to the huge gathering. We almost make it a rule that our students who are staying in the hostel, they also take part in it. There's a huge resistance from them. Every year we used to experience a huge resistance that they don't want that duty. But as we insist, where they start doing, most probably just 1 hour slot has been kept for them so that the volunteers can come and take over that work from them. Every year the same thing. At the beginning they are just hesitant. They don't will to go for that work. They try to avoid. And once we insist, we almost force them. No, you have to do it. And now after 1 hour, when they're supposed to leave, the volunteers are supposed to come and take over, they won't leave. They want to continue. And we have to force them again, because we know that as they are not habituated, they will develop tremendous body pain. But every year the same experience, once they start, they don't want to discontinue. Why? In that 1 hour, they start feeling that joy. They're just simply giving the food gives a tremendous joy, because you are somehow divulging the ego. In others' happiness, you are finding happiness. I was in the relief section, in the welfare section in Belur Math for some time, for about 2 years. Whoever used to come for some pecuniary help, so extremely poor person, this have no means, even he doesn't know how to arrange for his food the next day, no money. They will come and ask for some small help, 50 rupees, 100 rupees. And my senior Swami, he asks them why they want. And you will find a wonderful thing, that very few will say that I am hungry. I don't have clothes to wear. No, almost none will say. When you ask why, they will say, I have a son, I have a daughter or a grandson or a granddaughter for whom I don't have anything to feed him, I don't have sufficient money to buy clothes. They never say, I am hungry. It's a wonderful thing. That in this life you will find that our suffering is only when you cannot, because of your, lack of resources, you cannot give to others. That causes the suffering. When you will find in most of the cases, the suffering comes when you cannot give. There is a joy giving because that you are following the law of interbeing. And that's the idea of the Dravya Yajna first. And then comes the Tapo Yajna, penances. That is also very important, as we give an importance. To certain extent, penance is very much required in life. Just to give a common example, the fasting. That why we fast. So on the Shivaratri night, the puja will be there. From morning we start fasting. So it's almost 24-hour fasting. That from this morning to the next morning we fast. Why we fast? Is it just some meaningless ritual? No. Now, what's the idea? That throughout the night I will be doing in 4 praharas. There's in 4 times we have to do the worship. So entire night you will be spending in worship. So 5, 6 hours, 8 hours you will be worshipping. So it needs a particular state of your body and a particular state of your mind. What's that? If when I'm worshipping, somehow I get distracted because of my hunger, I cannot worship. Now you say that from the morning you have not taken food, you're bound to feel hungry. That's the wonderful thing. You don't feel hungry. What happens, very interesting. Why be fast? So when you take the resolution of fasting, so as usual in the lunch time you will be terribly hungry. Why what is that hunger? The pangs of hunger is the biological alarm system, nothing else. That the body is giving the alarm that it is the time for food, take food. So pangs of hunger is this biological alarm system. So now if you somehow just ignore that alarm system, the alarm system after some time get tired, it stops. Just even in your the clock, the alarm, once, twice, thrice, then it will stop. So here also the alarm system stops for the time being. Those who fast, they all know, in the lunchtime you will be feeling terribly hungry. You somehow distract yourself by getting engaged in some other work, try to avoid that hunger. In the evening, by the evening, suddenly you will find your body is very light, as you have not taken food throughout the day, and you are not feeling the pangs of hunger. Now your mind is prepared. Now for a few more hours, the alarm system won't again disturb you. Your mind is free, your body is light. Now you can continue with your worship for hours together. And thus you will find you have renounced the short-term gain. You have given away the short-term gain to gain something which speaks of the long-term gain. So now you can really resort to contemplation throughout the night. That's why occasional fasting is something which even nowadays they think of it with all the physical benefits, the body, this our health benefits. Apart from that, it has a huge psychological benefit. So that's why this tapa is also a yajna, where you are giving away something to get something. Yoga yajna, chitta vritti nirodha. We need not have to speak of that. For our spiritual enlightenment, that's the yoga yajna is the something which is important. Swadhyaya, this is also is a yajna, swadhyaya. So when I read the scriptures, its meaning immediately doesn't become clear to me. So now there are two ways. I can say these are all useless nonsense, and I may just become disinterested in the study, or I may be humble enough to accept the fact that the scripture is something authentic. I do not have the clear understanding to understand it. So why not cogitate upon what I am studying? Sravana, manana, nididhyasana. Let me try to again and again think over what I am studying. And as the knowledge becomes clear, I develop an intellectual conviction, and then I try to internalize that conviction. That becomes a part of my life. That is nididhyasana. So this speaks of swadhyaya yajna. Through your study, that study you make the sacrifice. That study gets converted into your contemplation. That contemplation becomes the way of life. And that transforms your life. As Swami Vivekananda used to say, in the present world, we find that there is so much of information. Swamiji used to say that gathering of information is not knowledge. The real knowledge is the assimilation of idea. Get hold of one idea and just make that idea your life. And he used to give a wonderful example. He used to say, you know how this pearl is formed? That a particular type of mollusk, will get irritated by a sand particle. And what it does, along with the sand particle, it will dive deep into the river bed and it will start salivating over that irritant, that sand particle. It will start salivating over that. And in time, in the process of time, what happens? With time, what happens? There's this secretion. All this secretion gets solidified, crystallized to become the pearl. So Swamiji is saying that like that sand particle, which is the irritant, take one idea, cogitate upon it. That is manana, go on. Go on cogitating upon it. The more the idea becomes clear, you develop an intellectual conviction, but that intellectual conviction itself is not sufficient. Your entire life should be transformed as per that intellectual conviction. What's the meaning of life getting transformed as per your intellectual conviction? That Ramakrishna, during his sadhana, he had that idea that somehow this wealth can be a big distraction. So he took a resolution, I won't touch any coin, no metal. And that really became his reflex. In his later life, it was found, if even unknowingly he touches some metal, he will develop tremendous pain. His hand will ripple. His hand will ripple from that. He will feel as if some scorpion has bitten him. So that is the meaning of the internalization. That idea is no more is not just an intellectual concept. It has totally changed your reflex. So that's the idea of Nididhyasana. So through Swadhyaya, taking that Swadhyaya as the Yajna, you can transform your life. You are just giving everything, your entire life for that idea. You live it, you sleep it, you dream it. That's what Swamiji is saying. Forget everything else. Anya vacha vimunchata. That live on that idea, and that idea becomes a reality in your life. And that is the Swadhyaya Yajna. So those who are Shankshita Vrata, those who are sincere in their Vrata, Shankshita Vrata, so they practice all these various type of Yajnas. So that is the 28th. So and 29th and the 30th, what they say speaking of? So it speaks of the pranayama, the food habits, everything is a type of yajna. What is they saying? Apane juvhati pranang, prana panang tatha pare, prana pana gati ruddhva, pranayama parayana. So some sacrifice the outgoing breath in the incoming breath. And some others offer their incoming breath into the outgoing breath. So it appears to be technical. But when you bring it to the practical instruction, you will find in the yoga shastra, they speak of, in the commentary they have spoken of, that when you are breathing in, you're breathing with the repetition of hum. When you're breathing out, so breathing in means you are offering the, what you say, that's the inhalation in the exhalation. When you're breathing out, the exhalation is being as if sacrificed in the inhalation. That's the idea. So when you are doing it, do it with the idea of hamsa, so hamsa. That when you're breathing out, sa, breathing in hum. So then if you repeat this, then it becomes so hum or hamsa, so hum. Means I am he am I. So there, with your each and every breath, you are aware of your spiritual awareness. When you do that, your mind becomes calm. And then the second phase of that mantra speaks of prana pana gati ruddhva. Many speak of kumbhaka. This rechaka, puraka and kumbhaka. Many think that withholding of the breath is something forceful. No. So when you do it with a spiritual idea that I am he, so hum, or hamsa, that I am that I am the self. The self is nothing but me and me alone. With this idea, thinking of your identity with the self, when you go on repeating the mantra, your mind calms down. You will find with the calming down of their mind, the frequency of your breath gets reduced. And then the kumbhaka happens spontaneously. When your mind gets controlled, the kumbhaka happens spontaneously. Never practice kumbhaka, withholding of the breath, forcefully. It's just in this context, let us say, because when you practice kumbhaka, it gives a sense of exhalation. You will find a sense of exhalation, but it is very harmful. Why you get that sense of exhalation? It's a bit euphoric feeling, because your brain, that with each and every, that brain is nourished by the oxygen. When you withhold your brain, immediately the brain starts starving. And when you are forcefully starving the brain, it is our brain, which is when it is active, it is having so much of restless thoughts. And when you are starving the brain because of the lack of oxygen, the thoughts automatically stop for the time being, and you feel very relaxed, euphoric. But you are doing it in a very wrong way. You are starving the brain in the long run. Many say by doing pranayama, by doing meditation, some has gone mad. Actually, they don't follow these proper instructions. You are not supposed to withhold your breath forcefully. Through meditation, when your mind calms down, it's just the opposite. Just when your mind calms down, the mind is no more active, so it doesn't need that much of oxygen. So now your breath automatically will slow down. So that is okay. When you are slowing down your mind and the breath automatically slows down, then the kumbhaka follows, then it doesn't harm. So here actually that is being spoken of. So first, someone is practicing the sacrifice of inhalation, offering it in the exhalation, and again exhalation, offering in the inhalation, and through the process, in this process, he is thinking of the self and self alone, the mind calms down, and then that kumbhaka, the withholding of the breath follows. This type of pranayama is something is practiced as yajna by some. So that's the thing which has been spoken of in the 29th sloka. And the 30th sloka, what they speak of, apare niyata hara pranan pranesha juvati sarvepyate yajna vido yajyak shapita kalmasha. It speaks of restricting your diet. Apare niyata ahara. When you have your diet in a controlled way, not just to satisfy your greed. Pranan pranesha juvati. So what is there? This others curtail their food intake and offer as a sacrifice the function of the senses in the senses. So this also is a sacrifice. So in our scriptures they say that this restriction of the food, that how we should take the food. In the traditional way they have mentioned, you should fill only half of your stomach with food, another 1/4 with water, and another 1/4 should be free for the year, passage of the year. So we are not supposed to eat just the way we fill the so-called this, what you say, that the machine guns with this, what you say, with all the barud thasha, with all the gunpowder. In the olden days that was thing, and so that there can be a tremendous blast. So that's the way. We are not supposed to fill the stomach with food. Just half of the stomach should be filled with food, 1/4 with water, and another 1/4 should remain free for the passage of the year. So air doesn't go to the stomach. But what does it mean by the passage of the air? The diaphragm, the movement of your diaphragm gets restricted if you eat full stomach. So that 1/4 to keep it free for the passage of the air means for the movement of the diaphragm. That should not be in any way obstructed. So for that, 1/4 of your stomach should remain empty. So that's the idea of the sacrifice of niyatahara. So these are the explanations which we get from the commentary of Sridhar Swami of Shankaracharya. So that's the sacrifice. So you will find, everywhere the idea of regulating your life through yajna, to renounce some short-term gain for some long-term benefit, has been defined and described as yajna. So in the conclusion, this 31st sloka, what it is saying, that the one who regulates his life through yajna, his life is something which is nourished, is fulfilled. And those who don't resort to this yajna, their life gets disintegrated. So that's the 31st sloka. So with this we will end our discussion. What it is saying, yajna shishtam rita bhujo yanti brahma sanatanam nayang lokasti yajnasya kutonya kurusattama. Those who know the secret of sacrifice and engaging in it, partake of its remnants, that are like nectar, advance towards absolute truth. This Brahma Sanatanam, Yajna Shishta, that after Yajna, whatever remains, the idea is just after puja, that we have the food as the offered food, as a sacred food. So it has been offered. So what after Yajna, what remains? When you take that, that nourishes you. And if you take out of grid, it will disintegrate you. Nayang loka sti agyagyasya kutonya krustama. Even this loka is destroyed for the one who, instead of resorting to yajna, resorts to this life through grid. What to speak of the other world? So again, this idea of this yajna means here, in all this, as a conclusion, we can say, renouncing the short-term gain for the long-term gain. So you resort to some form of self-discipline as per the stage of your life, as per your nature, as per your swabhava, as per your asrama. You resort to particular type of discipline which gives you a long-term benefit. So all those short-term, you sacrifice in the fire of sacrifice all the short-term benefits to gain in return the long-term benefits. Those who follow their life through these principles of yajna, they flourish. The others, this life is disintegrated. What to speak of the life hereafter? So that's the idea. So with this, we stop our discussion today. We'll continue with the remaining portion of the 4th chapter again in the next class. Thank you all. Namaskar.